with Luke's Sewing Center in Tri-County. I'm here to demonstrate one of our projects for the week that you receive in an email from Luke's. This week, or actually this was from last week, it's a sunglass case. So I had this one, I made this one just to show you before I actually demonstrate it. I'm going to be demonstrating it on this Janome M7. It's a wonderful machine. I just love it. One of my favorite things about it is this wide throat space that you get. It's just really big for all you quilters. And then additionally, it comes with this table that's really nice that has an accessory drawer as well. And then it also has your measurements that help as you're sewing, either in centimeters or inches. So let's get started. Okay, so you have your pieces cut out, which consist of your batting. You should have 2 pieces of batting. You have 2 pieces for your lining, and 2 pieces, one for the front, one for the back, and they've cut these so your front is actually 2 pieces that you're going to sew together. And we have 2 of those. What I would recommend, I know in the instructions that you received, they have you put your batting underneath these and then have you come back and sew this on as you're doing that. What I'm going to do, and what I did on my sample, was I sewed these together first, made my seam so it connected as one piece, and then did my batting and did my lines. And that's what I would recommend. I want to mention that in the directions they indicate to do all seams at a 3/8 inch. I'm doing all mine at a 1/4 inch. It's just my preference, and just so you know when you're doing yours. So I'm, as I suggested, going to sew these 2 pieces for the front together before I put the batting on and before I put my lines on. Okay, so now that I've sewn these 2 front pieces together and I finger press them, then I am going to iron that seam just to flatten it. When we do our lines, they'll go over it nicer if this is flattened before we put our batting on it. Okay, so for the quilting part of this, I am going to be making lines, vertical lines, with a separation of a 1/2 inch. To make it easy for me, when I have my batting underneath this, I am going to measure out 1/2 inch lines, and I'm using this friction pen to mark my fabric. So when I'm sewing, all I have to do is follow these lines. Once I'm done putting it all together, all I have to do with a friction pen is iron the fabric, and it will take off my marks for all my lines. It's just an easy way to do it, and I like easy. So I left the front cover above this back cover, and I'm lining up the lines here so that when I actually make this, the side seams will match. So now I'm ready to do my quilting on the front panel of the glass case, and I am going to change my thread. Since it's going on the outside, I'm going to use a more decorative color, and you'll see it's very easy to thread this M7. Take out the white. That's my old thread. And this M7 has the needle threader, automatic needle threader. I'm going to lower my presser foot. There we have it. Okay, so I am going to proceed. I'm going to start right up here and just start quilting my lines. One thing I will do, I am going to change to this number 2 stitch because it will automatically do my start and reverse on each end, so I don't have to remember that. And that's another nice feature of this machine. See how it automatically did my reverse stitch there. Get that thread under there. And I'm just following my lines, which basically I find if I run along the inside of that foot, now it will only do so many stitches and then it stops. Okay, so now we've quilted in our 1/2-inch lines separating each other. I have them on both pieces. I want to mention at this time that the length of my stitch, although the default is 2.4, every machine may be different. I changed mine to 3.10, and I just think that's just a nicer looking stitch for exterior and more decorative because I use the colored thread on here. So now we will put these aside and take our lining pieces, which are the same size, same color, and on these put right sides together like we normally do when we're stitching. And we will stitch the long edges all the way. We will leave one of the short edges open, and on this end we will stitch in a little bit, but we're going to leave an opening for when we turn this inside out. And I'm ready to get started. And remember I said I'm doing all of mine at 1/4 inch instead of the 3/8 inch that your instructions recommend. And I didn't bother to change my thread, I just left what I had in there. So I get to the edge, raise it, and this is where I'm just going to come in ever so slightly. Cut my thread, and then start again over on this edge. So we finished sewing this. I'm going to set this aside, and now we're going to put our front and back pieces together the same way, only we will sew fully around the 3 edges and just leave one opening on here. I'm going to try and line up my stitches. So on the exterior the lines are lined up, and then I'm going to go ahead and start sewing my 1/4 inch. Okay, so both of these are done. Now we're going to take the exterior and turn it right side out. And we're getting close to the end here. This comes out pretty nicely, pretty easily. trying to get these corners to point out, which however you like to do that. Just kind of finger press your seams like that. And then we're going to take our case and we're going to put it inside the lining. So then you have right sides together. Okay, so now we're working up at the top, the opening, and we're going to create, remember I said I'm using a 1/4 inch seam. If you were doing the 3/8, then do your 3/8. We're going to sew that seam to combine the lining and the outer fabric. And you want to try and flatten your little seams here and get them as evenly matched as you can. So I'm going to slide this under here. I know the sewing along the edge here is pretty close to my 1/4 inch. I'm going to put that down, put my needle down, and start sewing. Pull that seam down so it flattens as I go, and just work it until I'm all the way around. And there we go. And then our second to last step will be we will pull the exterior piece, which is underneath here now. We'll pull this through, and then we'll sew that little seam that from that opening that we had so that we could pull it through. See how that lays out? If you want to. So I want to get my corners pointed again up here. If you have your iron on, you could iron that down before you stitch it closed, and then you'll push that in and you'll be done. I'm going to go to the iron now. Okay, so I press this. I'm going to do another 1/4 inch line along here and then push it inside, iron it again, and my glass case will be done. Okay, so I've been to the ironing board. I finished this. I pushed my interior fabric in there, as you can tell. I'm pretty happy with how it came up. My lines lined up nicely. I have my reading glasses here to test them out, and I have plenty of room for sunglasses. But there you have it. That's our project from last week. I hope you're happy with your own work.